and your windows are rolled up, all tinted, I'm going to come and just knock on your window. Sure enough, I did it. What came out? A plume of smoke. I'm telling the story because one of these young men, he graduated and went to college, and he saw another of his kind, and that guy was really struggling with smoking weed, and he said, you really need to talk to Brian Mercer. He's just cool that way. He's cool with this. I heard that. And I called the guy that had been in my small group, and I said, stop it. I said, don't for a minute take my willingness to be present with you as me being cool with your sin in a way that leads to destruction and death. And if we're not careful, we think that because God is so loving, because God's willing to be present with us in Jesus, that the truth is that he's cool with our sin. Not true. And the season of Lent tells us that. And this woman at the well proves that to us. That God in Jesus can hate our sin, but still love us. It is amazing that type of love and that type of perseverance in our life can reign true in Jesus. And so I can tell you that as we weigh our sin, which I pray that that's what we're doing in this season, and we see it for what it is, disgusting and awful, that we don't lose the truth that the goodness of God still remains. That the goodness of God remains through Jesus. I met with Pastor Craig and Pastor John earlier because I didn't want to get mixed up in theology here. You see, the goodness of God has always been. When God created the moon and the stars and this world and mankind in his own image, that was out of his goodness. God was good when he saved Isaac from being slain by his father and provided a lamb. God was good when he put a fourth man in the fire for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Amen? But we see in the Old Testament, it just feels like a bunch of wrath. We see God, annihilating entire cultures and communities. So it could be real easy to say, well, the goodness of God showed up when Jesus showed up. It had always been there. It's just the goodness of God can be revealed to us sinners when we say, God, you are good in Jesus and through Jesus. Brings us to my first point. As we look at the goodness of God that had always been there became real and was revealed through Jesus. Because you see, God can't be in the presence of sin. And we, Romans chapter 3 we live in this place. We've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And so how can God be in our presence if we're sinners? The answer, Jesus. And we have a real life example of that with the woman at the well. She comes to the well, wrath-filled, sin-filled, shame-filled, cursed literally to her face and cursed spiritually. Jesus doesn't leave her. Jesus doesn't make her get on her knees and say, unclean, unclean. Jesus just starts having a conversation with her. I want you to know, if you've been weighing your sin and if you feel full of shame and guilt, that Jesus just wants to have a conversation with you. Proof, the woman at the well. Now, Jesus doesn't just sweep the sin underneath the rug. He names it, doesn't he? But I have to only imagine in my mind the care and the expression on his face was not mean, but good. When we experience the goodness of God, it is revealed through Jesus, and it becomes real in our lives when we say, you are the Messiah. I invite you to read all of John chapter 4. It's amazing how the story unfolds. But the woman's life literally changes. Have you heard of doing a 180 before? Where, have you seen somebody who was just, full of sin and darkness and headed, headed to hell in a handbasket, we say. And then the next day or the next time you met them, all they could do is talk about Jesus. That's the woman at the well. Because the moment she realizes and says, this must be the Christ, she drops her bucket and she runs to the nearest town and becomes an evangelist and says, come see a man. Don't miss this. She is meek, quiet, shameful. She doesn't want to talk to anybody. And then she has an encounter with Jesus. And she becomes an evangelist and goes to a nearby town. And if you read the rest of the story, hundreds come to faith in Jesus because of her testimony. Take that for women can't preach. Woo! The goodness of God is revealed through Jesus. The goodness of God becomes real when we believe that he is the Savior, the Messiah. Full of shame and guilt over your sin. Can't get out of the rut of doing the same sin over and over and over and over and over again, waiting for God to release you from that sin. I want you to meet this woman who was so wrought with her sin that she wouldn't even come and get the necessity of life until it was so hot and parched. And her life changed. Her life changed. Her life became to say these three words that became her battle cry. Come see a man. Come see a man that told me everything I'd ever done. And then hundreds come to Jesus and believe. What does the goodness of God look like to you? What does the goodness of God look like to you? The technical definition of the Greek word that I can't even pronounce says to be uplifted, a life uplifted in heart and life. That's the technical definition of the goodness of God. I would tell you, if you're seeking for a definition for the goodness of God this Lenten season, here it is before us. A life that's freed from shame and guilt. A life that is completely changed from going and talking to no one to becoming an evangelist, a proclaimer of the good news that Jesus is Lord. I pray that your season, your journey of Lent truly weighs your sin for what it is. That you make no mistake that there are no little sins. There's no sins in your life that are acceptable to God, that sin equals death. And your sin literally is eating you alive. But the only remedy for that sin is not working harder, not staying out of those places, but it's Jesus. And the proof is at the well. The proof is in the three words, come see a man. The proof is in a transformed life. And by the way, why would we do such a thing? Why would we examine our hearts and weigh our sin during this beautiful time called spring? So that on Easter we can say, he's not here, he is risen. Come see a man. What does the goodness of God look like to you? This past week was Shelly's birthday. I'm going to invite Enrique back up. He's going to lead us in a song that I heard this past Wednesday. I got to set the stage here. So Shelly's birthday was this past Wednesday. Shelly is somebody, my wife, that she doesn't ask for much. She's like a lot of you ladies out there. She doesn't ask for much at all. As a matter of fact, I had to talk to some of her friends, our neighbors, and say, what do you think Shelly would want? And I got her something, and she's like, yeah, it's okay. What she really wanted, though, was to go to a concert this past Wednesday night. And what you got to know about me is I'm just not a concert goer. I guess the first couple of concerts I went to, you know, the person singing didn't sound as good as they did on the tape. I just aged myself. And so I went, well, I just listened to them in the car. I don't need to see them live. Anybody with me? I'm just not a concert goer. So Shelly, you know, talks about this concert. She's kind of laying hints. I'm totally not getting them. It's sold out. So she says, well, I'm sure we can't get tickets. Somebody offers her tickets. Then she says, you want to go to this concert with me? I said, well, baby, you know it's on Wednesday night. We got church on Wednesday night. She said, well, okay, I'll ask so-and-so or so-and-so. And I went, no, it's your birthday. We'll go. And this is exactly the way it played out. I mean, now look, you got to know this. It's a Christian concert. You'd think the pastor would want to go to a Christian concert. The concert venue, North Monroe Baptist Church, is just as close to my house as it is to come here. I have no excuses. What you also need to know about me is I don't keep up with who sings what. I couldn't tell you maybe 10 songs that I know the lyrics and the songwriter. Are you with me? Like, I know it's a good song, but I'm like, I have no idea who. Like, I fail at that, you know, the game you play at the beach where you're sitting there and you play a song. Who is it? Well, I'm terrible at it. I just go upstairs. I don't even play. Would you know that as I was praying through this passage, as months ago, God laid on our hearts as pastors that we would walk through the fruits of the Spirit, and this sermon would actually fall on the Sunday after this concert. And would you know that this is a CeCe Winans concert? And would you know that she's most well known for a song called The Goodness of God? Let's stand together and worship. If we're still looking for a definition of the goodness of God, would you just hear this chorus? All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I'm able, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after me. It's running after me. It's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after me. Would you hear this song today as the ballad of this woman? We don't know everything she said, but she said, come see a man. Could it be that she went to this town and said, come see a man whose goodness was running after me? And could you believe that as you weigh your sin and as you live in shame and in guilt and in darkness, and as you go, I don't even want to come to church because I'm so bad, could you believe that, like the woman at the well, his goodness is running after you?
Until good.